So we're going to start in Numbers 26, but I don't know how far we're going to read today. I'm just not sure. But be thinking in terms of, you have the two pieces going on, both the types and shadows and the real and practical in the moments of these people's lives. The types and shadows as they represent to us what God's going to do even in our lives as we continue to live on before we're going to be permitted to be permanent members of the kingdom of heaven. Secondly, for the people in the immediate time, for them to recognize what God requires of them to continue to go on rightly serving and worshiping Him so that they can not prove to God what they're thinking. He already knows that. It's so that A, they would encourage one another to stay the course, and B, they would be a light to others who need to hear the gospel message so that they too can become part of the nation Israel, representing the kingdom of God's people, so that they would want to be in eternity with their Creator, knowing that there's still going to be a lot of challenge along the way. And then, as we go through some of these recordable historical events, you're going to find there are very few, and I don't remember if there are any actually from this point forward until after Jericho, of any bad behavior from the people, I'll call it. The plague kind of was a message sent by God that even though I told you that you were going to be the ones that were going to go in, you still have to understand you will have to worship me in perpetuity. You don't get a vacation from that. It's not okay to suddenly start feeding your flesh and serving yourself and worshiping false gods and the devil and expect me to be okay with it, because I'm not. And so these messages are all being sent simultaneously, and as he records the historical recounting, it's a reminder to those people. Look how many times I showed you exactly what I told you I was going to do, and every time I've done it. It's very important that you get the message. So Numbers chapter 26, beginning in verse 1. And it came to pass after the plague that the Lord spoke to Moses and Eleazar the son of Aaron the priest, saying, Take a census of all the congregation of the children of Israel, from 20 years old and above, by their fathers' houses, all who are able to go to war in Israel. Now understand something. There are some people who think that in this second census, that they just named other people as heads of the houses. Let me tell you the impossibility of that happening in such a culture. There is no way, if we were that culture and my father were alive, that I would be named and he would not. It's just not possible. From a cultural sense, there would be a major uproar for that to happen. And so there's no chance that the ones who are going to be named have fathers that are still alive.
Oh, you're saying that some of the names don't correlate with previous censuses?
They won't. The point is, none of them will correlate. And some people will say, well, just because they don't correlate doesn't mean some of those other people weren't alive and made it in. No, that's exactly what it means. That's the purpose of the list. Because in our Western culture, we don't understand such things. But in this Eastern culture, there is zero chance that a son would be named as the head of a father's house and not the father. It's not possible. It's never going to happen. Okay? Which means everyone who's named who are heads of these houses means all of the other names that were previously named in the previous census, they're dead. That's the point of the list. So Moses and Eleazar the priest spoke with them in the plains of Moab by the Jordan, across from Jericho, saying, Take a census of the people from 20 years old and above, just as Jehovah commanded Moses and the children of Israel, who came out of the land of Egypt. Don't forget, one of the reasons for this census is when it's all done, you don't have a small group of people where everybody's milling around and knows each other. There's too many people here. There's no chance everybody knows everybody. So how would they find out if God, in fact, hasn't accomplished what He said He was going to accomplish? But by taking the census and sharing the results of the census with the heads of the Father's house, and then that information trickles down into the various tribes. So this was evidence to the people, not to God, of his accomplishment. This was helping them understand God said something and he's accomplished it. It would also be an announcement to them. Since God has accomplished what he said he was going to accomplish before taking you into the land of Egypt, and now he's showing you he's accomplished what he said he was going to accomplish, guess what's next? What do you think the people would recognize would be next? The next stage would be going in. That's right. Why would that be a good thing to notify the people of? Well, I haven't made it yet. They're going to go, and the timing would be imminent. If you've been trampling around the wilderness for 40 years, wouldn't you get excited knowing you're actually going to be able to go in now? Yeah, that's exactly why. Verse 5, Reuben was the firstborn of Israel. The children of Reuben were of Hanok, the family of the Hanokites, of Palu, the family of the Paluites, of Hezron, the family of the Hezronites, of Carmi, the family of the Carmites. These are the families of the Reubenites. Those who were numbered of them were 43,730. And the son of Palu was Eliab, Dathan, and Abiram. These are the Dathan and Abiram, representatives of the congregation, who contended with Moses and Aaron in the company of Korah when they contended against Yehovah. And the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up, together with Korah, when that company died, when the fire devoured 250 men, and they became a sign. That's an important statement. What were they a sign of?
God fulfilling what he said he's going to do.
Yeah, and the consequence to people if they don't listen to what he calls them to do and follow. They became a sign. By the way, you notice the familial connection, and because they were sticking together as a family doing the same evil, they all suffered the same consequence. So the blood of the lamb should be thicker than the blood of your biological forefathers. Nevertheless, the children of Korah did not die. An interesting statement. Why? Because Korah had marched off up to the temple, and his family was back at his tent, and it was only those with them that died. So Dathan and Abiram, who stayed back at their tents, doomed their families. That's exactly right. And their families, because they didn't stand against his evil, suffered the consequence. The sons of Simeon, according to their families, were Nemuel, the family of the Nemuelites, of Yamin, family of the Yaminites, of Yakin, the family of the Yakinites, and Sarah, the family of the Sarites, and Shaul, the family of the Shaulites. These are the families of the Simeonites. 22,200. The sons of Gad, according to their families, were Zephon, the family of the Zephonites, of Hagi, the family of the Hagites, of Shuni, the family of the Shunites, Ozni, family of the Oznites, Eri, the family of the Erites, Arad, the family of the Aradites, and Areli, the family of the Arelites. These are the families of the sons of God, according to those who were numbered of them, 40,500. The sons of Judah were and Onan, and and Onan died in the land of Canaan. And the sons of Judah, according to their families, were of Shelah, the family of the Shelahonites, of Perez, the family of the Perizzites, of Zerah, the family of the Zarites. The family of Perez were of Hezron, the family of the Hezronites, of Hamul, the family of the Hamulites. These are the families of Judah, according to those who were numbered of them, 76,500. The sons of Issachar, according to their families, were of Tola, the family of the Tolites, of Pua, the family of the Punites, of Yashub, the family of the Yashubites, of Shimron, the family of the Shimronites. These are the families of Issachar, according to those who were numbered of them, 64,300. The sons of Zebulun, according to their families, were of Sered, the family of the Sardites, of Elon, the family of the Elonites, of Yaliel, the family of the Yaleelites. These are the families of the Zebulunites, according to those who are numbered of them, 60,500. The sons of Joseph, according to their families, by Manasseh and Ephraim were the sons of Manasseh, of Machir, the family of the Machirites, and Machir begot Gilead, and of Gilead, the family of the Gileadites. These are the sons of Gilead, of Yezer, the family of the Yezerites, Asriel, the family of the Asrielites, of Shechem, the family of the Shechemites, of Shemidah, the family of the Shemidites, of Hefer, the family of the Heferites. Now Zelophehad, the sons of Hefer, had no sons, but daughters, and the names of the daughters of Zelophehad are Mala, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. These are the families of Manasseh, and those who were numbered of them were 52,700. These are the sons of Ephraim, according to their families, of Shuthelah, the family of the Shuthelites, and Becher, the family of the Bachrites, of Tahan, the family of the Tahanites. And these are the sons of Shuthelah, of Aran, the family of the Aranites. These are the families of the sons of Ephraim, according to those who were numbered of them, 32,500. These are the sons of Joseph, according to their families. The sons of Benjamin, according to their families, were of Bela, the family of the Belites, of Ashbel, the family of the Ashbelites, of Ahiram, family of the Ahiramites, of Shufam, the family of the Shufamites, of Hufam, the family of the Hufamites. And the sons of Bela were Ard and Naaman of Ard, the family of the Ardites, of Naaman, the family of the Naamites. These are the sons of Benjamin, according to their families. Those who were numbered of them were 45,600. These are the sons of Dan, according to their families, of Shuam, the family of the Shuamites. These are the families of Dan, according to their families. All the families of the Shuamites, according to those who were numbered of them, were 64,400. The sons of Asher, according to their families, were Yimnah, the family of the Yimnites, of Yesui, the family of the Yesuites, and Beriah, the son of the Beriites. Of the sons of Beriah, of Eber, the families of the Eberites, of Malkiel, the family of the Malkielites, and the name of the daughter of Asher was Sarah. These are the families of those of the sons of Asher, according to those who were numbered of them, 53,400. The sons of Naphtali, according to their families, were Jaziel, family of the Jazielites, of Guni, the family of the Gunites, of Yezer, the family of the Yezerites, of Shilem, the family of the Shilemites. These are the families of Naphtali, according to their families, and those who were numbered of them were 45,400. These are those who were numbered of the children of Israel, 601,730. If you notice, the number hasn't changed much since the original census. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "To these the land shall be divided as an inheritance, according to the number of names." So he's announcing, these guys have done well to make it this far. So they're going to be the ones who are going to inherit the land. To a large tribe you shall give a larger inheritance, and to a small tribe you shall give a smaller inheritance. Each shall be given its inheritance according to those who are numbered of them. But the land shall be divided by lot. They shall inherit according to the names of the tribes of their fathers. According to the lot, their inheritance shall be divided between the larger and the smaller. And these are those who were numbered of the Levites, according to their families. Of Gershon, the family of the Gershonites. Of Kohath, the family of the Kohathites. Of Merari, the family of the Merarites. These are the families of the Levites. The family of the Libnites. The family of the Hebronites. The family of the Malites. The family of the Mushites. The family of the Kohathites. And Kohath begot Amram. The name of Amram's wife was Jochebed, the daughter of Levi, who was born to Levi in Egypt. And to Amram she bore Aaron and Moses and their sister Miriam. To Aaron were born Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar. and Nadab and Abihu died when they offered profane fire before the Lord. Now those who were numbered of them were 23,000, every male from a month old and above. For they were not numbered among the other children of Israel, because there was no inheritance given to them among the children of Israel. These are those who were numbered by Moses and Eleazar the priest, who numbered the children of Israel in the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho. But among these there was not a man of those who were numbered by Moses and Aaron the priest when they numbered the children of Israel in the wilderness of Sinai. For the Lord had said of them, they shall surely die in the wilderness. So there was not a man left of them, except Caleb the son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, the son of Nun. And so that chapter is essentially dedicated to the evidence of God fulfilling His calling, His promise of wiping some out and preserving others. And so this is a recordation of that, in fact, accomplishment. So when we look back at these things, it is prophecy fulfilled. God prophesied, I'm going to do this, and now He's recording the fulfillment of that very prophecy. And the other is, you've got particular eyewitnesses to this effect. So you've got 3 eyewitnesses to this. You have Moses, you have Joshua, and you have Caleb as responsible eyewitnesses who are testifying to the truth of this accomplishment. Chapter 27. Then came the daughters of Zelophehad, the son of Hepher, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, from the families of Manasseh, the son of Joseph. And these were the names of his daughters: Maiah, Noah, Ogla, Milcah, and Tirzah. And they stood before Moses, before Eleazar the priest, and before the leaders of all the congregation by the doorway of the tabernacle of meeting, saying, Our father died in the wilderness, but he was not in the company of those who gathered together against the Lord, in company with Korah. But he died in his own sin, and he had no sons. Why should the name of our father be removed from among his family because he had no son? Give us a possession among our father's brothers. So Moses brought their case before Yehovah. And Yehovah spoke to Moses, saying, Now, why would Moses need to bring this before Yehovah? Well, because the standard was to pass on the inheritance through the sons. With no sons from this one man, the daughters were coming and questioning, is our father's inheritance going to be wiped out, or is it going to be preserved? Well, Moses hadn't come across that yet, so what does he do? He goes and asks Yehovah. Why this is an interesting context for me is the following. This is a situation where God had not addressed it before. So Moses goes and asks. Had it been a question of something God had already addressed previously, would Moses needed to have gone and asked what to do? No. And so there's people today who tell you that you constantly need to pray essentially about everything. And my answer to that is, I disagree. Because if God's already covered a subject, there's no reason to pray about it. I'll give you an example. As I've done enough family ministry over the years, I've heard people talk about how they prayed and found out that God was delivering another person to this person who was praying to be their husband or wife. When the conditions preventing such a union were evident. And the person would claim that God answered their prayer with this person. That's a ridiculous claim. Because if God has already prevented the conditions by His Word, there is no way He's going to contradict Himself because you go and ask pretty please. It's just not going to happen.
He never did with Balaam.
No, never did with Balaam. That's right. So, there are other cases. Somebody comes to you and has a question about something that God's already covered. And some people, some really famous people who have risen up high in denominational ranks will fall prey to this same problem. You know, they'll be interviewed on a television program and asked, is God the one who brought the tsunami? And their answer invariably is, I don't know. That's a stupid answer. Only God can bring tsunamis. There's no reason to say I don't know. Asked why God brought the tsunami, that might be an I don't know answer, but did God bring the tsunami? That's a foregone conclusion. God clearly states He's in control of the wind and the seas and the water, and if it happens, it's because God brought it. Why He brought it, what He exactly was doing, we may be able to summarize, but we can't be specific enough to know exactly what He was doing at all levels. So, I don't need to go pray about whether or not God's the one that brought the lightning strike, or whether He brought the tsunami, or whether the earthquake happened at God's hand. That's a ridiculous question. He's already covered those things, and He alone is in control of all those things. Also, going and praying that God will bless my actions that I know are sinful is a waste of time. It's an absolute waste of time. Because God's already said, A, He won't cooperate with sin. B, He's not going to hear the prayer of a wicked person who's purposing his heart on sin. So praying about it is not going to do me any good. Verse 6, and Jehovah spoke to Moses, saying, the daughters of Zelophehad speak what is right. You shall surely give them a possession of inheritance among their father's brothers, and cause the inheritance of their father to pass to them. And you shall speak to the children of Israel, saying, if a man dies and has no son, then you shall cause his inheritance to pass to his daughter. If he has no daughter, then you shall give his inheritance to his brothers. If he has no brothers, then you shall give his inheritance to his father's brothers. And if his father has no brothers, then you shall give his inheritance to the relative closest to him in his family, and he shall possess it. And it shall be to the children of Israel a statute of judgment, just as the Jehovah commanded Moses. Well, this is pretty clear that God does not have a preference or a male-dominated preference of some kind for the human race. All He did was set up a governing structure within the genders of society. But He clearly doesn't have a preference of one over another, because very simply, if the males don't exist, then the females get what was allotted for male inheritance. It's real simple. Now Jehovah said to Moses, go up into this Mount Abarim, and see the land which I have given to the children of Israel. And when you have seen it, you also shall be gathered to your people, as Aaron your brother was gathered. That's code for you're going to die. For in the wilderness of Zin, during the strife of the congregation, you rebelled against my command to hallow me at the waters before their eyes. You see, this is why not only Moses as a person could not lead them into the land, but this is why the law can't bring people into the grace of God, because the law convicts of sin. These are the waters of Meribah at Kadesh in the wilderness of Zin. You'll find this in Numbers chapter 20. This is where Moses struck the rock the second time when God told him to speak to the rock. And it's particularly significant because the first time he was told to strike the rock, that again is the resemblance of, or the picture of Christ being stricken for our sins. But the second time to just speak to the rock, because Christ will not be crucified a second time for anyone. Then Moses spoke to Jehovah, saying, let Jehovah, the God of the spirits of all flesh, set a man over the congregation, who may go out before them and go in before them, who may lead them out and bring them in, that the congregation of Jehovah may not be like sheep which have no shepherd. And Jehovah said to Moses, take Joshua, the son of Nun, with you, a man in whom is the Spirit, and lay your hand on him. Set him before Eleazar the priest and before all the congregation, and inaugurate him in their sight. And you shall give some of your authority to him. Or literally, you shall give of your authority to him, that all the congregation of the children of Israel may be obedient. He shall stand before Eleazar the priest, who shall inquire before Jehovah for him by the judgment of the Urim. At his word they shall go out, and at his word they shall come in, he and all the children of Israel with him, all the congregation. So Moses did as Jehovah commanded him. He took Joshua and set him before Eleazar the priest and before all the congregation. And he laid his hands on him and inaugurated him, just as Jehovah commanded by the hand of Moses. This is an interesting little section of the Scriptures. The person selected to succeed Moses was the man closest to Moses, serving him now for these 40 years in the wilderness. That has interesting aspects to it. Certainly from a training perspective, no better training place to be than right at the side of Moses. Most people won't endure 40 years of training to get their commission. They just won't last. Most people just flat won't last. Joshua lasted and performed very well. Secondly, if you're Joshua, guess what you've seen for 40 years? You've not just seen Moses conducting himself, but you've also seen how the people treated Moses. What has he seen for 40 years? Yeah. By the way, Joshua, do you want this job? You follow? Now, that wasn't how it happened. Moses goes down to Joshua and says, Joshua, Jehovah selected you to supersede me, or to succeed me, to come after me, to lead these people in and lead them out, take them into the promised land. I'm not going to go with you. A lot of times the understudy gets cold feet at that point. Whoa, wait a minute. The reason I was strong is because I was following you. What do you mean I'm going to go on my own? Not Joshua. Joshua doesn't have these cold feet. You never read about it at all. He's seen a lot in 40 years. He's seen that the job of being the leader of these people is not one that's going to make him wealthy or necessarily popular. It may come with severe consequences and threats upon his life. And he takes it anyway. I think that's a very interesting contemplation to think about the reality of that commission that Joshua was given and the fact that he embraced that commission. As you go forward in life, we use all sorts of worldly schemes for measuring our success. And if we use those schemes for measuring our success, we can fall into some unholy ways of making decisions as to how or if we're going to execute our responsibilities or our opportunities. What has happened in Moses' tenure? He led 2 million people out of the desert, and a third of them God wiped out in the wilderness, if not more, counting their wives and children of those who died as well, because of their unfaithfulness. If we looked at modern leadership books, we would say Moses was a failure. That would be his legacy, that Moses failed. We know that God looks at him very differently, however. By the way, God refers to him in future writings that he has, and how God included Moses as one of 2 that meet Jesus in the Mount of Transfiguration. Secondly, we see here that there's an authority going to be given to Moses. At this point, this has to do with the governing authority that the people are to recognize. That God has made a choice. He's declared something to be so, and that the people are to embrace beyond just Joshua embracing. And so this is why it's done in front of the people. It's an announcement to the people that there's going to be a transference of leadership that's going to go on, and that they will be obligated to follow the new leader. And their choice of doing so or not doing so will come with the consequences that are appropriate for their choice. We also hear that God is telling Joshua and Moses and Eleazar that God will speak to Joshua through Eleazar the priest using the Urim to indicate to him the answers to the questions that he will face. That's God promising to Joshua, I'm going to be with you. You don't have to worry about it. Yep, this is a pretty tall order. Yes, this is a great responsibility, but I'm going to be with you. And that's where your confidence should come. And then finally it ends with God declaring Moses did just as the Lord commanded him. The faithfulness of Moses. Even though he made the one mistake, he didn't abandon God and become frustrated with God's decisions. Moses wanted very deeply to take the people into the promised land, but he's not going to be allowed to. And by not getting his way, he doesn't doubt God and abandon his faithfulness to God. He accepts God's decision.
Notice the verbiage used there in verse 17.
Yeah.
Go out before them and go in before them, lead them out and bring them in. It's very similar to what the people asked for a few hundred years later when they wanted a king.
Right.
They wanted someone who would lead them.
Right.
Battles and be their leader.
Right.
And I guess they forgot the fact that they could have had that kind of person without having a king. Whether they had in Moses, they had in Joshua, they had in the Judges, the years to follow, was exactly that. But without all the parts that came with the king and the taxes and taking things from him, they had asked the Lord for just a leader, he would have supplied him.
Right. Instead of asking for a king like the other nations have, they'd have just asked for a leader like Joshua.
It's the same thing, but without all the negative effects.
Right. So in a practical sense, that's a very true statement. In the types and shadows sense, you're talking about a man that will lead the people into the promised land. And his name is Joshua, we say in English. That name is a contraction for the Hebrew Yehoshua, Yehovah Shua, which is the same name for Jesus, by the way. It's also the same name for the prophet Hosea. So this name is very consistent. And so we see here Jesus in the Greek or Joshua in the Hebrew are the same name. And what is this person going to do but lead the people into the promised land, go before them, lead them out and lead them in, and direct their path as a nation. Does that make sense? And so you see how God's doing a lot of things in and through this simultaneously, not only talking about the immediate practical sense of what's going on in the lives of these very people, and leaving the lessons behind for us to learn in a very practical sense. He's also using the types and shadows to teach us a much greater lesson about the king, the kingdom of heaven, and his construction of his kingdom, including the governance thereof and the requirements of its citizens. Chapter 28. Now Jehovah spoke to Moses, saying, command the children of Israel, and say to them, my offering, my food for my offerings made by fire is a sweet aroma to me. You shall be careful to offer to me at their appointed time. And you shall say to them, this is the offering made by fire which you shall offer to Jehovah, 2 male lambs in their first year, without blemish, day by day, as a regular burnt offering. The one lamb you shall offer in the morning, the other lamb you shall offer in the evening. And 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a grain offering, mixed with 1/4 of a hin of pressed oil. It is a regular burnt offering, which was ordained at Mount Sinai for a sweet aroma, an offering made by fire to Yehovah. And its drink offering shall be 1/4 of a hin for each lamb. In a holy place you shall pour out the drink to Yehovah as an offering. The other lamb you shall offer in the evening. As the morning grain offering and its drink offering, you shall offer it as an offering made by fire, a sweet aroma to Yehovah. So this is going to be a lot of repeat of things we've already read, and I don't intend to go over them at length, but they are purposeful for a particular reason. These people were all 20 years old and under at the time when God first set these ordinances out. And 40 years of marching around the desert and purging out the people of Israel and making them into a holy nation has been taking place. And God wants to be clear to this nation that there is a prescribed right way to worship Him, and that they need to attend to that prescribed right way. Don't just make it up as you go. Just because your fathers died doesn't mean you now get to make up how to worship the Lord. He says, nope, there's a prescribed right way to worship me, and I expect you to continue it. Verse 9, and on the Sabbath day, 2 lambs in their first year without blemish, and 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a grain offering mixed with oil, with its drink offering. This is the burnt offering for every Sabbath, besides the regular burnt offering with its drink offering. So, on the Sabbath, how many lambs would be slaughtered? 4. Makes the priests a little more busy that day. The very reason why when Jesus is castigated for supposedly breaking the Sabbath, he says, have you not heard what the priests did on the Sabbath day? Verse 11, at the beginnings of your months you shall present a burnt offering to Yehovah. 2 young bulls, 1 ram, 7 lambs in their first year without blemish. 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a grain offering mixed with oil for each bull. 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a grain offering mixed with oil for the 1 ram. And 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering for each lamb, as a burnt offering of sweet aroma, an offering made by fire to Yehovah. Their drink offering shall be 1/2 a hin of wine for a bull, 1/3 a hin of wine of a hin for a ram, 1/4 of a hin for a lamb. This is the burnt offering for each month throughout the months of the year. Also 1 kid of the goats as a sin offering to Yehovah shall be offered, besides the regular burnt offering and its drink offering. So, if the beginning of a month was also on a Sabbath day, you can see how this would be a very busy day. Number 1. Number 2, in order for them to provide the continuation of such offerings, what is Yehovah implying? He's going to continue to be an abundant provider if they trust Him. That's what He's implying. He's not directly saying it, but He's clearly making that implication in His statement.
Well, just that is 958 lambs alone.
Yeah.
1 year.
For 1 year. So, almost 1,000 lambs. Right. It's not even done. Right. Not done yet. On the 14th day of the first month is the Passover of Yehovah, and on the 15th day of this month is the feast. Unleavened bread shall be eaten for 7 days. On the first day you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work. And you shall present an offering made by fire as a burnt offering to Yehovah. 2 young bulls, 1 ram, 7 lambs in their first year. Be sure they are without blemish. Their grain offering shall be of fine flour mixed with oil. 3/10 of an ephah you shall offer for a bull, and 2/10 for a ram. You shall offer 1/10 of an ephah for each of the 7 lambs. Also 1 goat as a sin offering to make atonement for you. You shall offer these besides the burnt offering of the morning, which is for a regular burnt offering. In other words, you couldn't skip the regular morning and evening offerings when you had these high holy days with a lot to do. which would mean they would need to be not only prepared beforehand for all of it, but they would have to be well organized to make this all work in a day's time. Verse 23, you shall offer these besides the burnt offering of the morning, which is for a regular burnt offering. In this manner you shall offer the food of the offering made by fire daily for 7 days, as a sweet aroma to Yehovah. It shall be offered besides the regular burnt offering and its drink offering. And on the 7th day you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work. Remember, the Holy Convocation is the gathering together of the people. And the reason he calls it holy is this is the nation of Israel. It's supposed to be a microcosm or a representation of the future kingdom of God. And so that convocation will be holy. The gathering of the people will be holy. And the convocation happens at the beginning and at the end. There are 2 gatherings together. One is to show the completeness of time. The other is to show the gathering of all in Christ, and then gathering all to Christ when he comes again. Verse 26. Also on the day of the first fruits, when you bring a new grain offering to Yehovah at your feast of weeks, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work. You shall present a burnt offering of sweet aroma to Yehovah, 2 young bulls, 1 ram, and 7 lambs in their first year, with their grain offering of fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah for each bull, 2/10 for the 1 ram, and 1/10 for each of the 7 lambs. Also the kid of the goats to make atonement for you. Be sure they are without blemish. You shall present them with their drink offerings besides the regular burnt offering with its grain offering. And in the 7th, chapter 29, and in the 7th month, on the first day of the month, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work. For you it is a day of blowing the trumpets. You shall offer a burnt offering as a sweet aroma to Yehovah, 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 7 lambs in their first year without blemish. Their grain offering shall be fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah for the bull and 2/10 for the ram, and 1/10 for each of the 7 lambs. Also 1 kid of the goats as a sin offering to make atonement for you. Besides the burnt offering with its grain offering for the new moon, the regular burnt offering with its grain offering, and their drink offerings, according to their ordinance, as a sweet aroma, an offering made by fire to Yehovah. Why is there an offering for a new moon? Flash quiz.
Because that's, he said every month.
Correct, that's the beginning of the month. That's how they would record. They didn't have printed calendars with pictures of cars or, landscape scenes on them hanging on their donkey's tail or pinned to their camel. Okay? The way they would track things was by exactly what God said. I'll give you luminaries in the heavens, and they will be for you to set the times and the days and the weeks and the seasons. So how did they keep track of their months? New moon. Okay? Verse 7, on the 10th day of this 7th month you shall have a holy convocation. You shall afflict your souls. You shall not do any work. You shall present a burnt offering to Yehovah as a sweet aroma, 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 7 lambs in their first year. Be sure they are without blemish. Their grain offering shall be of fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah for the bull, 2/10 for 1 ram, 1/10 for each of the 7 lambs. Also 1 kid of the goats as a sin offering besides the sin offering for atonement, the regular burnt offering with its grain offering, and their drink offerings. On the 15th day of the 7th month you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work, and you shall keep a feast to Yehovah 7 days. You shall present a burnt offering, an aroma made by fire as a sweet aroma to Yehovah, 13 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 lambs in their first year. They shall be without blemish. Their grain offering shall be of fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah for each of the 13 bulls, 2/10 of an ephah for each of the 2 rams, 1/10 for each of the 14 lambs. Also 1 kid of the goats as a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering, its grain offering, and its drink offering. On the second day, present 12 young bulls, 2 rams, 14 lambs in their first year without blemish, and their grain offering and their drink offerings for the bulls, for the rams, and for the lambs by their number, according to the ordinance. Also 1 kid of the goats as a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering with its grain offering and their drink offerings. On the third day, present 11 bulls, 2 rams, 14 lambs in their first year without blemish, and their grain offering and their drink offerings for the bulls, for the rams, and for the lambs by their number, according to the ordinance. Also 1 goat as a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering, its grain offering, and its drink offering. On the fourth day, present 10 bulls, 2 rams, and 14 lambs in their first year without blemish, and their grain offering, and their drink offerings for the bulls, for the rams, and for the lambs, by their number, according to the ordinance. Also 1 kid of the goats as a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering, and its grain offering, and its drink offering. On the fifth day, present 9 bulls, 2 rams, and 14 lambs in their first year without blemish, and their grain offering, and their drink offerings for the bulls, for the rams, and for the lambs, by their number, according to their ordinance. Also 1 goat as a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering, its grain offering, and its drink offering. Pause right there. Do you notice that's the first place where he's talking about the lambs? Sorry, that's the second place. Let me go back. Is that the first place? Nope. I take it back. We'll just keep reading. Verse 29. On the sixth day, present 8 bulls, 2 rams, and 14 lambs in their first year without blemish, and their grain offering and their drink offerings for the bulls, for the rams, and for the lambs by their number, according to the ordinance. Also 1 goat is a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering, its grain offering, and its drink offering. On the seventh day, present 7 bulls, 2 rams, and 14 lambs in their first year without blemish, and their grain offering and their drink offerings for the bulls, for the rams, and for the lambs, by their number, according to the ordinance. Also 1 goat is a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering, its grain offering, and its drink offering. On the 8th day you shall have a sacred assembly, also known as a holy convocation. And in this case, meaning one of solemnity. So it's not supposed to be high enthusiasm party. You shall do no customary work. You shall present a burnt offering, an offering made by fire as a sweet aroma to Yehovah. 1 bull, 1 ram, 7 lambs in their first year without blemish. And their grain offering and their drink offerings for the bull, for the ram, and for the lambs, by their number, according to the ordinance. Also 1 goat is a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering, in its grain offering, and its drink offering. These you shall present to Yehovah at your appointed feasts, besides your vowed offerings and your freewill offerings, as your burnt offerings and your grain offerings, as your drink offerings and your peace offerings. So Moses told the children of Israel everything, just as Yehovah commanded Moses. What's that? No PETA people? Well, let's put it this way. If there were PETA people and they were thinking in those terms, they would be rapidly corrected. The amount of blood being shed, smoke being wafted up in the air, carcasses having to be taken out and disposed of, people having to cleanse themselves going in and out doing all this work, blood-stained clothing, blood all over the ground, would be immense. I mean, the graphic nature of the picture of what he's trying to do would not be something you could just walk by and not know. You couldn't even be in the neighborhood. It's kind of like as we are here in Southern Oregon. You got, fires that are 30 miles away, and the smoke comes all the way up here, and we know there's fires burning down there. It's kind of like what they were. Even at 2 million people, they're not going to be 30 miles away because of the tightness of their camping situation. So they're going to have lots of smoke all around from all this stuff, and the smell is going to always be there. The reminder is great. Yeah, well, God calls it a sweet aroma. I'm not sure the people would have thought of it as a sweet aroma, but we'll see.
The barbecue smell is not maybe if they were next to where it was all being done, the slaughtering part, I don't know.
Yeah, well, and the way they had to carve up the animals and do the things they did, which he doesn't go over here in detail again, he's already done that. But if you've ever killed an animal and cut its guts open and started dressing the animal, it smells. So all that's there and all that's burning too. Huh? God like barbecue?
Marriage supper is the barbecue.
Chapter 30. Then Moses spoke to the heads of the tribes concerning the children of Israel, saying, This is the thing which Jehovah has commanded. If a man makes a vow to Jehovah, or swears an oath to bind himself by some agreement, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceeds out of his mouth. Or if a woman makes a vow to Jehovah and binds herself by some agreement while in her father's house in her youth, and her father hears her vow and the agreement by which she has bound herself, and her father holds his peace, then all her vows shall stand, and every agreement with which she has bound herself shall stand. But if her father overrules her on the day that he hears, then none of her vows nor her agreements by which she has bound herself shall stand, and Jehovah will release her, because her father overruled her. If indeed she takes a husband while bound by her vows or by a rash utterance from her lips by which she bound herself, and her husband hears it and makes no response to her on the day that he hears, then her vows shall stand, and her agreements by which she bound herself shall stand. But if her husband overrules her on the day he hears it, he shall make void her vow which she took, and what she uttered with her lips, by which she bound herself, and Jehovah will release her. Also any vow of a widow or a divorced woman by which she has bound herself shall stand against her. Why? There's no head covering. If she vowed in her husband's house, or bound herself by an agreement with an oath, and her husband heard it, and made no response to her, and did not overrule her, then all her vows shall stand, and every agreement by which she bound herself shall stand. But if her husband truly made them void on the day he heard them, then whatever proceeded from her lips concerning her vows or concerning the agreement binding her, it shall not stand. Her husband has made them void, and Jehovah will release her. Every vow and every binding oath to afflict her soul, her husband may confirm it, or her husband may make it void. Now, if her husband makes no response whatever to her from day to day, then he confirms all her vows, or all the agreements that bind her. He confirms them, because he made no response to her on the day that he heard them. But if he does make them void after he has heard them, then he shall bear her guilt. These are the statutes which Jehovah commanded Moses, between a man and his wife, between a father and his daughter, in her youth, in her father's house. I don't think that needs any additional explanation. That seems pretty straightforward to me. Anybody have a question about that? Whether or not you like it is not my question. That you get to take up with Jesus and ask him why he made that decision. Chapter 31. And Jehovah spoke to Moses, saying, Take vengeance on the Midianites for the children of Israel. Afterward you shall be gathered to your people. So Moses, in other words, this is a charge of Moses. He's been told he's got to go up on the mountain and see the land and transfer his authority to Joshua. But he says, first, I want you to be the leader and go out and conquer the Midianites because of what they've done to the nation Israel. So Moses spoke to the people, saying, Arm some of yourselves for war, and let them go against the Midianites to take vengeance for Jehovah and Midian. 1,000 from each tribe of all the tribes of Israel you shall send to war. So there were recruited from the divisions of Israel 1,000 from each tribe, 12,000 armed for war. Then Moses sent them to the war, 1,000 from each tribe. He sent them to the war with Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the priest, with the holy articles and the signal trumpets in his hand. And they warred against the Midianites just as Jehovah commanded Moses, and they killed all the males. They killed the kings of Midian with the rest of those who were killed, Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba, the 5 kings of Midian. Balaam, the son of Beor, they also killed with the sword. If you remember him. And the children of Israel took the women of Midian captive with their little ones, and took as spoil all their cattle, all their flocks, and all their goods. They also burned with fire all the cities where they dwelt, and all their forts. And they took all the spoil and all the booty of man and beast. Then they brought the captives, the booty and the spoil, to Moses, to Eleazar the priest, and to the congregation of the children of Israel, to the camp in the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho. And Moses, Eleazar the priest, and all the elders of the congregation went to meet them outside the camp. But Moses was angry with the officers of the army, with the captains over the thousands and the captains over hundreds who had come from the battle. And Moses said to them, "Have you kept all the women alive? Look, these women caused the children of Israel, through the counsel of Balaam, to trespass against the Lord in the incident of Peor. And there was a plague among the congregation of Jehovah. Now therefore kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman who has known a man intimately. But keep alive for yourselves all the young girls who have not known a man intimately. And as for you, remain outside the camp 7 days. Whoever has killed any person, and whoever has touched any slain, purify yourselves and your captives on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. Purify every garment, everything made of leather, everything woven of goat's hair, and everything made of wood." Then Eleazar the priest said to the men of war who had gone to the battle, "This is the ordinance of the law which Jehovah commanded Moses. Only the gold, the silver, the bronze, the iron, the tin, and the lead, everything that can endure fire, you shall put through the fire, and it shall be clean. And it shall be purified with the water of purification. But all that cannot endure fire, you shall put through water. And you shall wash your clothes on the 7th day, and be clean. And afterward, you may come into the camp." Now Jehovah spoke to Moses, saying, "Count up the plunder that was taken of man and beast, you and Eleazar the priest, and the chief fathers of the congregation, and divide the plunder into 2 parts, between those who took part in the war, who went out to battle, and all the congregation. And levy a tribute to Jehovah on the men of war who went out to battle. 1 of every 500 of the persons, the cattle, the donkeys, and the sheep. Take it from their half and give it to Eleazar the priest as a heave offering to Jehovah. And from the children of Israel's half you shall take 1 of every 50, drawn from the persons, the cattle, and the donkeys, and the sheep, from all the livestock, and give them to the Levites, who keep charge of the tabernacle of Jehovah." So Moses and Eleazar the priest did as Jehovah commanded Moses. The booty remaining from the plunder which the men of war had taken was 675,000 sheep, 72,000 cattle, 71,000 donkeys, and 32,000 persons in all, of women who had not known a man intimately. And the half, the portion for those who had gone out to war, was in number 337,500 sheep. And the Lord's tribute of the sheep was 675. The cattle were 36,000, of which the Lord's tribute was 72. The donkeys were 30,500, of which the Lord's tribute was 61. The persons were 16,000, of which Jehovah's tribute was 32 persons. So Moses gave the tribute which was Jehovah's heave offering to Eleazar the priest, as Jehovah commanded Moses. And from the children of Israel's half, which Moses separated from the men who fought, now the half belonging to the congregation was 337,500 sheep, 36,000 cattle, 30,500 donkeys, and 16,000 persons. And from the children of Israel's half, Moses took 1 of every 50, drawn from man and beast, and gave them to the Levites, who kept charge of the tabernacle of Jehovah, as Jehovah commanded Moses. Then the officers who were over thousands of the army, the captains of thousands and the captains of hundreds, came near to Moses. And they said to Moses, "Your servants have taken account of the men of war who are under our command, and not a man of us is missing. Therefore we have brought an offering to Jehovah, what every man found of ornaments of gold, armlets and bracelets and signet rings and earrings and necklaces, to make atonement for ourselves before Jehovah." So Moses and Eleazar the priest received the gold from them, all the fashioned ornaments, and all the gold of the offering that they offered to Jehovah from the captains of thousands and captains of hundreds was 16,750 shekels. The men of war had taken spoil, every man for himself. And Moses and Eleazar the priest received the gold from the captains of thousands and of hundreds and brought it into the tabernacle of meeting as a memorial for the children of Israel before Jehovah. They went to war. 12,000 men go out to war, and 12,000 all come back. What was that an indication of to them?
Protection of the Lord.
That the Lord was doing exactly what He promised He would do. You see, they were going to go to war by crossing the river, and they were going to have to war against all these nations. What better way to help them remember the faithfulness of what God was going to do when they went there, but preserve every man alive in the battle that they just fought? The very thing that the people originally were afraid to do, because they said, if we cross over the river, we're going to die. God said, go to war and take care of the Midianites right here, and I'm going to show you something. And off they went, and what God showed them was His ability to protect every last one of them. And the people recognized, this is unheard of. The only way this happens is God's doing what He said He would do, and we're going to demonstrate our gratitude by how we respond. And so thus, that's what He's looking for us all to do. Live lives of gratitude, faithfulness unto Him, and go forward with the courage that He wants us to have to faithfully do what He wants us to do, trusting in Him, not walking by sight, but walking by faith. He has demonstrated now that He will do what He's promised He's going to do. He has set a record for us to show us that He once made promises that He later did fulfill, and now He's recorded the fulfillment of those for us so that we can know He has a perfect track record. Never once has He failed to keep His word. That's the point of the track record. Giving us additional substantive cause to trust Him. Because when we're in situations that cause us great mental conflict, we can choose one road or the other, the road of doubt or the road of faith. One road leads to life, the other road leads to death. And in teaching all these lessons, it's important that we learn them, even though we're not the ones walking through with the sword in our hand and conquering Midianites. We get to read the historical record of those who did and recognize that we too have a way to go forward, weapons that He's armed us with, and a duty to perform. And to have the same courage to go forward. And when God reveals Himself as faithful all the time, we can then respond back in kind to Him. Thank you, Lord. Your mercies are great. Your grace is wonderful. And your attention is invaluable, because without it, without your presence, I have no hope. I'd have no chance. There's no way that my attempts to accomplish what you have given me to accomplish could be done without you. Some of that would just be endurance through all of the challenges, which He discusses regularly. Some of it would be the perseverance against all of the personal attacks that might come upon you. Resistance of other people, as well as their formidable direct attacks against you. And in order to make that all work, in order for us to persevere and be able to cross the Jordan and finally end up in the promised land, we've got to remain faithful all the way through. Trusting God to not just be our leader and our protector, but our provider. There's no way these people could have predicted they were going to have all of this collection from this war, that God was going to have the Midianites be turned into their hand, until He just announced that it would happen. What's interesting about this is what is also very interesting about this is 40 years after they set out from Egypt in Sinai. What was the relationship between the Midianites and the Israelites to start with when they first left Egypt? It's really good.
Father-in-law was a priest of the Midianites
Father-in-law was a priest of the Midianites and getting along great. 40 years later, they're enemies. And the reason they became enemies was because the Midianites grew in worship of false gods. If you remember the mixing and mingling leading all the way back to Nimrod and the false gods that were created through that whole paradigm, the Midianites fell into that trap and then attempted to corrupt the nation Israel. Remember, the purpose for the construction of the nation Israel was to be a light to the world, to draw people to Yehovah and away from all that false idolatry. That's the purpose of it as a nation.
Moses had to stay faithful to the Lord and be able to reject. I mean, he lived in Midian for 40 years.
Right.
He had to be able to reject his own home, which he was considered for quite a while. When he came, no, you're not following the Lord. I'm sorry. He told us to come destroy you. What are we going to do?
Right. That's exactly right. And so, we can see how there's a definite transition that takes place in relationships with people as a result of the choices of who they will worship. Don't forget, the Moabites are the offspring of Lot. The Ammonites and the Moabites are the offspring of Lot. So this is Abraham's nephew. So you see how the family relationships now have disintegrated to the point where the biology is not what's holding them together. Edomites were the Esau offspring, that's right. And so these are all not getting along. And the reason they're not getting along is because of the substance of their worship of their lives. That's why they're at odds with one another.
Thank you for joining us today on our YouTube channel, XL for Christ. We hope you like and even subscribe to our YouTube channel for ongoing edification that you can gain from listening to the messages and hopefully diving further into the Word of God to find out His truth. We also like you to visit our website at xlforchrist.org. This website talks about the discipleship process that we engage in with folks to help them grow in Christ. We hope you will join us in our endeavor to make disciples for the glory of God.